All right. Before we start the podcast this week, I'd like to give a shout out to our former technician and still current editor, JC Cola. He had a heart attack the other week, but he when the Reaper came to pin him, he kicked out. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
I was wondering why he wasn't here.
But he's on his way to a full recovery. So.
Attention wrestling fans, you're in the blast zone for the only podcast where we blow kayfabe wide open and let you know what it really takes to become a professional wrestler. Presented by America's Academy of Professional Wrestling, this is the Buckle Bomb, and you're about to get blown up.
All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to the Buckle Bomb, presented by AAPW, the only podcast where we blow kayfabe wide open and let you know what it really takes to become a pro wrestler. I am Buck Bomber, and this week in the bomb shelter, I am joined by Papa Don Ray Campos.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going good, And Stan Callahan.
What up, y'all? How come everybody does that on your podcast? So the first one you introduce, and Ray... Hello, everyone.
Yeah, that is kind of what happens.
Every time. All right. Well, it's good that you're here, though. You look excited.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah, no, Pops has been begging me for weeks. You know, he's like, "Oh, if you can't get anybody else, you can get me. You can get me on the podcast."
Yeah, put me on there. I don't know why you won't put me on there.
Because I wanted to put over your students.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that.
Mic adjustment.
Yeah, a little on-the-fly mic adjustment here from Stan Callahan, which, shout out to Stan Callahan. We actually use his equipment for the podcast.
You're very welcome. Anything for you. For you.
Man.
That would have been really funny if this was a video podcast.
They'll know. They'll know.
They'll know. All right, so how's everybody doing this rainy Monday?
It's good to be in the air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
I know we didn't tell you, but we got the air conditioning on.
I see that. When that bill comes, I'm going to send it to somebody else.
All right. So Pops and Stan, y'all have been in the pro wrestling business for how many years?
Late 90s?
I remember training in 95.
Yeah, because
Summer of 95.
Yeah, one of my kids was born around that time.
Right, yeah, I think so, yeah.
So you remember 95, but I know you've taken a lot of blunt trauma to the head. Could there have been times before then?
No, I remember signing up to do wrestling with George in early summer of 95, and I know Red probably had already beaten, well, I used the name Red because we'll talk about that later, but I know he came in probably either 6 months before me, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't very long, but yeah, I was a little bit before you.
Yeah. And so, that was it. So that was around that time. So my debut match was in September of 95 at the Givens Rec Center. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So normally here on the Buckle Bomb, we talk about, the current climate of, training to be a pro wrestler and working out on the indies. But since you and Stan are here this week, I thought we'd maybe turn back time a little bit and dive into what, being a small wrestler was like back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Man, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. We had places to go every weekend. Pops and I, we'd be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday 6 months. For 6 months. I mean, there were so many places. There weren't as many wrestlers out there, so it was so much fun. I keep telling people.
You remember, Red, at that time we had the state had us, and we had to follow rules. You remember we had to hit that surety bond, and every time we ran shows in Austin, because the state Secretary of State always had wrestling controlled at that time in the 90s here in Texas. So not anybody could just pop up and do a wrestling show as like today. Back then you had to go out there and get your license and get your surety bond and get your stuff and have paramedics on standby. You remember all that, right?
Yeah.
We had that was a common thing back then, which I think was what made wrestling so pure back then compared to today.
Yeah, and I think because I spent some time in New Mexico, I think they still have it that way. That's why you don't hear a lot of stuff coming out of New Mexico, because they actually have to have paramedics and a doctor in the building to put on a show. And
Well, Oklahoma and Louisiana are still that way.
Yeah.
I know Kentucky's like that, and I don't know how many other states are like that now. But Texas, got rid of it. Probably want to say late '90s is when they early
Right around
2000s.
2000,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's when they got rid of that. And I knew when they did that all hell was going to break loose in Texas. And sure enough.
Wow. So you're talking about Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What about Thursday?
There were some Thursdays we
Yeah.
did in San Antonio.
It did. We did as much as we could with what we were, what we were available for. And this thing is about training, and I think the training back then, to me, anyways, was so much more special. The classes were smaller, and you got to train with some of the top guys. I mean, I remember, and we talk about it all the time. We went and trained a lot with Jose Lothario in San Antonio.
You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's I mean, the first time I went down there, I threw up 3 times not in the ring, but and then it's funny because they tell you not to throw up in the ring, and so you would get out to go throw up in the trash can, and then they would yell at you because you were getting out of the ring. Well, we got to do something here. Some of the top guys from San Antonio and Dallas and stuff. I mean, just getting to train with those kind of guys.
Yeah, even the guys from Houston, because we were also going to Houston and wrestling at the Radisson Inn, or those at Radisson Inn, wrestling at those hotels and those big hotels in the banquet halls, going to different event locations. Let's see, dance halls. I remember Victoria, Texas, doing the dance halls, which now today are no longer there.
Skating rinks.
We did those. We did rodeo arenas. We did those too. It just never. It was nonstop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Loads of fun. So much fun. That's why we've got stories about him running over old guys and fish like that.
Well, it's funny
stuff like
because
that.
I don't remember these stories, but he reminds me of them, and I don't recall. You're probably right, because my wrestling career, probably I don't remember a lot of stuff. But
Also, Mac Monday, our wonderful tech guy, can you write down whenever somebody uses a potty mouth?
Do we have a potty mouth already?
Yeah.
All right.
who did? Who was it?
Wasn't
Stan. No, it was Stan. Because I had to go in and do it this week, censor and stuff.
Did you really?
Yeah. I said I dropped the wrong kind of bomb twice.
Yeah. Well, you can't. Is that because it's on YouTube?
I mean, we just try to keep it kind of family friendly.
Yeah.
Family friendly.
Well, you've seen my family, haven't you?
Yeah.
So anyway, what was this running over an old man story?
Oh my God, what was that? That was in Was it
No,
Corpus?
Rockdale.
Was it Rockdale?
Remember, because we went to Rockdale to do a radio spot live, and then we were going to go hand out flyers, and we stopped at a restaurant to.
You had to hand out flyers back then?
Yes,
yeah.
we did. Yes, we did.
So we went to the restaurant and we ate, and we were getting ready to leave, and he was driving. There was like 6 of us, and he puts it in reverse, and all you hear is, and we're like, what in the world? And we look around and we don't see anything.
I didn't see anything. I was driving.
Nothing. All of a sudden, I'm like, dude, you hit something. He's like, nah. I'm like, dude, you hit something. Next thing you know, this like 90-year-old man jumps up and he's looking through the back window. He ran over him and knocked him down. But see, that's the thing too about being in the small towns. He was like, hey, dude, I'm good, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, he didn't care. No, if it was Austin, they'd have got
I would have gone to jail probably that day.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I would have gone to jail. I don't recall because I know I backed up. I didn't think I hit anything, but I didn't hear anything. And Red looked at me and goes, "Hey, stop! Slow down! Stop!" And I was like, "What? He goes, "You hit somebody." I said, "No, I didn't." "Yeah, you did," because he was sitting right next to me. And I was like, "No, I didn't hit nobody." "Yeah, you did." And as we're arguing that point, the old man puts his hand on the back of the trunk. "I'm okay," and yells out, and I'm like, "Oh."
Mark that. Mac
No, I
Monday.
didn't say I stopped at SH. So
I'll censor it anyway.
and now I go, oh wow, I did hit somebody. I didn't even ask him if he was okay, did I? He just kept walking.
He kept walking, and we just drove off. It wasn't that big a deal.
Oh,
Not at all.
man.
So yeah, So I'm not trying to take over your podcast.
No,
here,
go
'cause
ahead,
I keep
go
talking
ahead.
about training because that's what the podcast is normally about.
Yeah.
He keeps talking about stories. So why did you decide that George was the one to train with?
because George was the only one I knew.
Yeah, George De Lisla was putting on a show at Gibbons Rec Center. I went. Dusty Wolf was there. Man, I'm trying to think of some of the people because it was so long ago, and all of those guys are gone.
Right.
Not really gone, but they're just not in the business anymore.
Right.
No, a lot of them have passed away.
And you know, and I went, and during one of his intermissions, he was like, "Hey, you ever thought about being a pro wrestler?" And I was like, "Well, who hasn't thought about being a pro wrestler? Sure, I have." And pulled him off to the side after the show was over and hung out, and he told me what it was all about. And he was at the Gibbons Rec Center, and you know, like here, these guys got 3 technically professional rings to learn to do what they do in it. We had tumbling mats on the concrete floor.
Oh yeah.
That's all we had.
About 2 inch thick.
Yeah, so I went, and that's where we started, and it was interesting. I enjoyed it. It's tough, which is good. I don't think it's tough enough now, but
No.
whatever.
I remember coming in and George having a group of 7 guys in my class. And by the time maybe a month was already in, or not even that, probably a couple weeks, there's only 2 of us left.
Right, yeah.
And then a month and a half later, the other guy dropped, and I was the sole survivor, and I kept going after that. So, yeah, those were rough times. But I'll also take it, Ray, that it was also the time of the generation that we were in too, because, you know, back then there was guys who were tough, and that was a natural thing to be tough, you know. And I think today everyone looks down upon, you know, masculinity or something like that. They don't, you know,
Masculinity.
Yeah, that, whatever the hell it's called. But the fact of the matter is, we were tough then, and we didn't mind hitting each other in the ring, because, you know, you and I have wrestled each other many times, and we didn't hold back on you and I either. You know, I hit you with all my strength. I know you freaking hit me with all your strength, you know. But it made a match even more interesting, because at the end of the night, we were friends. We were still going to be friends, but we go and kill each other.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny that because and a lot of people, and I don't know if the current group is or is not, but should be super proud about being trained here in Texas. There was a guy, J.P. Black, who actually sent me a message, a Father's Day message.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so he worked all over the place here. He was super good at what he did, and he moved to New York. And so he started training with those guys in New York, and he said they complained every single time. All they kept telling is, "Jesus, you are so stiff." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Man, you are stiff." He goes, "No, this is just working out in Texas." Oh, my God,
JP
it's so
Black
tough.
was trained by George also. George had a hand in training him, so he was one of us. And so we looked at him as a brother because of where he came from. You know, back then, when you were trained by one trainer, we were all brothers in the sense that George was our, you know, our patriarch dad in wrestling, and we're all his kids, you know, the same way we see it today. But the fact is that we were all trained by George, and so we were all going to work the same way with each other, you know.
Right.
And then for JP Black to go up to New York, I often wondered how that was going to react, how they were going to react to his style of wrestling, or if he had to, you know, dummy it down a little bit, or was he going to be, you know, doing that? You know what? Going back on that note, I remember, Red, when I went to Mexico, I was told the same thing.
Oh, yeah?
When I was in Mexico, when I was working for CMLL and doing the things on the road with him, and I was doing the different little house shows for him and whatnot, they would always tell me, they would use the word manos pesadas, which means heavy hands. And because when I would chop them, they would say, "Oh, you got manos pesadas." And I'm like, "No, I don't." "Yeah, you do." And I'm like, and I'm looking at my hands and looking at them, like, "My hands are probably just a little bit bigger than yours. What are you talking about?" "No, you hit pretty hard." I was like, so there we go. I had to bring it down a notch when I was there, because they accused me of almost a shoot.
Right.
You know, which I wasn't trying to, but,
Right.
you know.
So speaking, looping back around a little bit, talking about wrestlers who aren't around anymore. Is it true you wrestled with Chavo Classic?
Like about 8 times.
See,
And Eddie.
And Eddie.
That's a crazy thing, because I had never heard you mention that. I heard it from a guy in Laredo, Dirty Sanchez. He's like, "Oh, yeah, man, me and Pops, we wrestled Chavo Classic." And I'm like, "Yo, Pops wrestled Chavo Classic?"
I wrestled a lot of people. I've never told you I wrestled. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
A whole nother story.
That's a whole different. That's a whole. You should
almost
open
got
that
beat
one.
up by
Do you wanna-
Chavo Classic.
Do you guys want
I
to?
got stories about Chavo Classic.
I almost got beat up by him. They
Really?
were doing a benefit show for, I don't even remember, maybe it was Mandy Fernandez or something down in San Antonio. And so they were bringing people in from all over. And I was actually doing this. I was doing a live podcast during the show. And because I wasn't wrestling, I had already had my 3 shoulder injuries. And so Chavo Classic had this styrofoam cup. I don't know what was in it, but it must have been pretty important because he set it down somewhere, and he comes back to me, and he sits down next to me. Where's my cup? I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, about to whoop your ass if you don't. You need to give me my cup back. And I'm like, dude, it was literally like a white styrofoam that you would get from the 7-Eleven. It was just a white cup. I'm like, dude, I don't have it. And he stands up, and he's ready to throw hands because he couldn't find this styrofoam cup with whatever was inside of it. And luckily, I forgot who it was that came over. It might have been Michael Dean that was like, hey, man, I think you set it down over there. And he went over there. But I was like, yeah, because I think that's the cool thing, too, about the time that you're in is who you get to hang out with, who you get to see,
Right.
who you get to work with, who you get to learn from. Because that's one of the biggest things, too. I don't know about a lot of these guys, but when you're on a benefit show and you're working around a bunch of people that you've never met before, that's a great opportunity to learn. And when some of the guys like Chavo and Manny Fernandez and Skandar Akbar was there that night, when they're all there and they're, hey, let me talk to you, you should be running to sit down next to them and talk to them. Because it's going to be, they're going to, even if they tell you how bad you were, they're going to help you in some way.
Absolutely.
You know? So
I got to feud with Chavo across Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. I worked with him. When I said 8 times, I probably wrestled him in Corpus, Alice, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Tulsa. I got to go a lot of places with him. And it was always a match that I did with him. Oh, also at the, what's the dome place up here by Temple? The round while he's on the freeway. What's Belton?
In Belton.
Right.
I don't know what it's called, but yeah.
The Belton Civic Center, I guess. I don't know what it's called like that.
Yeah.
I got to work with Chavo, and those times were good because Chavo knew of who I was, what I was capable to do. But I knew that every time I was going to wrestle or work Chavo that night, that my goal was to blow him up. Okay? Because that's my goal, to do with Chavo. Because I know if I can blow him up, easy night. Easy night for me.
Right.
And so after a while, I started getting even lot trickier to the thing, where I was bringing him a bottle of Jose Cuervo. And the promoter didn't know that I was bringing him a bottle. And it was just one of those mid-sized bottles, not the full bottle. And so Chavo would get his styrofoam cup, pour the whole thing in a cup, in the styrofoam, like a 32 ounce, and pour the whole thing, and maybe throw a splash of something in there and cover it up. And that's what Chavo was drinking before the match. So I would have my matches with Chavo, and it was probably 3 sheets to win. So
it was fun because I got to run in on because Eddie was between WCW and WWE,
right,
or at the time. He was in between, so he was doing gigs here and there.
Yeah, we had him in Corpus Christi that time.
And in Corpus, Eddie's in the back, and Chavo Classic goes out there, and all of us go to putting the boots to him, and it's. I'm trying not to laugh because we're putting the boots to him. We're trying to be serious, and he's laying on the ground, and he's just smiling at us. I can't believe, and then he's just making me laugh the whole time.
Yeah.
And then Eddie runs out and saves the day, and it's it was cool being in the ring with those guys.
Yes, it was. It was a great. It was. I think there's one match of he and I in Alice, Texas, on YouTube. So if you look on YouTube, you'll see a match between he and I, me and Chavo. And that was in Alice, Texas that we did. I think it was probably the first or second match I did with him there. And then there's other stories of Chavo that I've done with places and things that I've done with him. But yeah, a lot of memories with Chavo, quite a bit. Wow. He helped me a lot, taught me a lot. And if I asked him a question, he would look at me and goes, "Stop being a effing mark." So I'd shut up. Okay, fine. I'm not going to ask. You know, he would get mad at me when I would ask a question, even though he wanted me just to sit there and listen to what he had to say. But if I interrupted him and say, "Hey, Chavo, what about this?" "Quit being a effing mark." Okay, Chavo.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any other big names?
Eddie, I worked with Eddie. I did a cage match with Norman Smiley from WCW.
He put that little smiley.
Well, actually, that was his name. His name pronounced as Smiley. It's not Smiley.
Because it's got the EY.
Right, because it has, and in England where he was from, it's pronounced Smiley, not Smiley.
I want to see if he remembers this, and then I'll remember him. Any other big names? I'll remember him. I'll remind him because I got one that he probably don't remember.
Damn, oh, man. Wait a minute. Let me think.
Too late. New Jack.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, you're right. New Jack. I forgot. No, I didn't forget. Yeah, you're right. New Jack.
You brought that up last week.
I did bring it up because we were talking about hardcore stuff, and I used that to teach the guys here how to use that hardcore stuff in a match properly.
And he didn't stab you 8 times, did he?
No, he did not.
See?
Didn't kill me.
See, he didn't attempt to kill you.
No, he did not.
You also said it was the hardest clothesline you ever took.
Yes, it was one of the hardest clotheslines I ever took. Was his clothesline. I saw stars.
Did you complain about it?
No, I did not.
Yeah. Did you cry? Did you go to the internet or anything?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, I did not.
Because that's not what you do anymore.
That's not what we did back then.
Yeah.
No. But the thing was that he told me, he says, "Hey, when I come in with that." He says, "I'm coming in with a clothesline, turn your head." And he even turned my head. He goes, "Turn it this way." And he goes, "And then I'm going to hit you." And I said, "Okay, fine. I'll turn it that way." And I remember when he called clothesline, I said, "Oh, turn my head." And bam, he caught me. And when I was in the mat trying to get back up, I'm seeing stuff, bright lights in the sky, even though the arena had lights. But I saw that, man, when they turn the lights off in here? Because they were blinking, you know. That night, I got to, it was the main downtown theater in Corpus Christi. I forgot what theater. It was downtown Corpus.
I think it's the Concrete Amphitheater.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. We were there. I was opening card that night. I did my match. I was done for the evening. I was, that was an easy night for me. I'm not worried about it. I knew New Jack's on the card. So New Jack was to work with Russell.
Oh, yeah.
That night was one of our guys that we trained with as well. One of the guys that we know. And but Russell wore a mask. And New Jack says, "I don't work guys with masks."
For obvious reasons.
Yes. And he goes, so the promoter, who was Marty Green, said, "I maybe see where I can find you." So Marty goes around asking everybody, "Anybody work New Jack?" Nobody responded. Nobody wanted to work New Jack. And when he came and asked me, I said, "I'll do it. Why not? Let's go for it." And at that time, I knew who he was, but I did not know his reputation. Does that make sense? So I knew he was a hardcore wrestler. I knew what we were going to do. I knew everything was going to happen. But I approached him in a different way because when I was working for the UWF, Universal Wrestling Federation in Louisiana, I remember a gentleman, a big name, tell me I was nervous being back there the first time. And he goes, "Why are you nervous?" I said, "Because these are all big names. These are WCW guys. WWE guys are on this card, and I'm on the card with them." And he goes, "Why are you?" I said, "He goes, you know the difference between them and you?" He goes, "They do the same thing you do. They put one pant leg on a time. They brush their teeth in the morning. They put their shirt on one arm at a time. The difference between you and them is they got a break. You didn't." I didn't think about it. I said, "You're right. You're right." So I remember that conversation in my head, going to go talk as I'm walking toward New Jack where he's at sitting. I'm thinking to myself, he got a break. I haven't got my break. So I got up to New Jack and I said, "Hey, New Jack." I shook hands with him. I said, "Hey, my name is Pops Ray Campos. I'm the one working with you tonight. Let me know what you need. Let me know what you need to do. I'm here to make you look good." Those were my exact words. And right when I said, make you look good, he took a double take on his head. His turn, he goes, oh, wow, thank you. Sit right here. And I sat right there with him. And we went over the whole thing. He was preparing every object that he was going to use to hit me with and what we're going to use in the match. And he was gimmicking all of it to be used properly. And as I was in the ring, we're talking about the match, and he hit me with everything. He hit me with a VCR. Back then, he hit me with the crutches. He put a cookie sheet between my legs, hit me with a hockey stick right between my legs.
The bowling ball?
The bowling ball. He did a bowling ball, rolled it to me, and I got right in the middle. We did a lot of, and I beat him with a chain. I got to whoop him with a chain. And then there was one time where I kind of missed my timing on that chain, and I caught him on the head. And as soon as I did it, I go, sorry, New. I called him New. I said, sorry, New. And he goes, don't worry about it. Keep going. That's professionalism. You know? He put me in a trash can. He hit me with the hockey stick on the trash can. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff we did.
Right.
You know? Went to the back, and of course I was busted wide open. He was busted. We were both bleeding left and right back there. Went to the back. I asked him, New, what I got to work on? What did you think? He goes, nothing. Great job. Rode with him from Corpus, left Corpus, drove to him to Houston, and spent that whole weekend with him. And that whole weekend with him that I was with him, he taught me all the secrets of what we have to do. This is why I teach the guys today. So
Nice.
that's what I learned.
Yeah, see, having heard you talk about New Jack before, it seems like you know a completely different New Jack than the rest of the world does.
I know a professional New Jack. There's the difference.
But see, what this is all about is training.
Yes.
The guys that got stabbed, allegedly, in their opinion, and you know, the mass transit incident and all this. What was their training or lack of?
Right.
You know what I mean? And we talk about that all the time because, you know, Pops runs the wrestling school here at AAPW. A lot of it has to do with your training and how you're going to act when you get in the ring with somebody. You know, like you have guys that would have sat down next to New Jack and said, "Hey, let me explain to you what I do since this is my town."
Oh, wow.
And they would get stabbed.
Well, let me give you the story because
that's just not
we
how it's
went to
done.
Houston the following night. And you remember the guy named Hugh Rogue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Hugh Rogue was working New Jack that night in Houston. And Hugh Rogue came up to New Jack and shook hands with him. He said, "Hey, New Jack, my name's Hugh Rogue. I'm the hardcore champion around here."
Uh-oh.
He said, so when we do our match, he goes, there's over there by the table, there's a whip with barbed wire on it. Over by the chairs over here, there's a bat with barbed wire on it. Over here, there's another item he mentioned with broken glass or something like that. He said that he wanted to use. And and New Jack talked to me after the guy did this to him. New Jack looked at me, he goes, "Is this MF crazy?" He goes, "Because if it was me," he goes, this was New Jack said, "I would have picked up a piece of paper on the floor and said, 'Here, beat me with this.'" And this guy wants me to kill him with all these things. Or he says, he ain't touching me with that shit. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to kill him. That's what he wants.
Mark it.
Yeah, sense of that.
You know, I'm gonna kill him. So the match there in Houston took place. I was done working, so I got my video camera at the time, and I said, I have to film this. After coming back, seeing what I'm gonna see here, this is gonna be a massacre. And sure enough, it was a massacre that I saw in the ring that night, because New Jack finally went, and this guy went and got the items, but New Jack blocked him and used it on him. And to top it all off, New Jack got a Coors Light bottle, broke it on the pole. So the bottom of the neck was still in his hand and the top part was still up, and he used it on his forehead. Okay.
Yeah, but Hugh Rogue is the walking horror show or something like that, and that's just him and Necro Butcher and all
those
these
guys.
guys just, dude, crazy. I watched them with scissors just cutting their heads up. I'm like, God, You know, and
at that time, yes.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I ran into Scott Casey a couple weeks ago at a show.
Cowboy Scott Casey.
He was one of the first people I ever saw in any kind of hardcore situation. He was working a show here in Austin, and he was, I don't even remember, probably like Bobby Jagger or somebody like that. And he gets the win, and the sheep herders come in. Mm-hmm. The sheep herders, these guys have been banned from San Antonio. These guys were just ruthless, you know?
You know who they are, right?
The bushwhackers.
Yeah, I was going to say the bushwhackers.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is before, and they actually, I'm glad they got the bushwhackers. That way they don't have to kill themselves for their entire career. But they went in there and they wrapped him in barbed wire and just started stomping the hell out of him and literally started a riot. Like, I was 15 years old and scared for my life at the Austin. I mean, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is crazy. And then now to see, you know, the New Jacks and the Necro Butchers and all of these guys and just
Abdullahs.
Just, you know, I mean, the Necro Butcher and Abdullah did a matchup at NWA
Dallas.
Suck West, and that's what we call it now. But anyways, NWA Suck West, and they got a coffee pot, and he just bashed Necro Butcher over the head with the coffee pot and split everything open, and glass went flying everywhere. So, I mean, I know that's not about the training, but what you were talking about, it's all
We go
in
off
how
topic all the time.
No, that's why I love my podcast, because we start talking and we just go into food and then music and then back to wrestling, and but it goes back to the training. How were you taught to act in the dressing room? How were you taught to act? If I've never met this guy before sitting across from me, but me and him have a match tonight, if I come in not being friendly to him, how do you think he's going to be when we get in the ring?
Right.
You know what I mean? So your training, whoever trains you, all of that stuff, you which is another thing, you know, he's got the background. So if somebody calls and they're like, hey, Pops, I need, you know, a tag team and a female, they know when he sends them that they're going to get good people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
It's all
So
about that.
it was a matter of learning how to work. So when I saw the videos of New Jack doing these things to these people, I quickly thought, like, what was that old man that Slick Willie or Old Willie?
No.
What was his name? Whatever his name is.
Sense of that?
Okay. No, but I'm saying, when I saw that, the first thing when I watched that match and I talked to New Jack about it, New Jack told me, he goes, these guys got in the ring with me and they started swinging at me for real. They were swinging at him like a real fist fight. And I'm like, again, how were you trained? You don't realize that this man is trained professional at what he does at his craft. He knows exactly how to take care of you and use these items on your body to hurt you, but yet make it look good. Not hurt you, kill you, but you'll feel it. You know what I mean? So these guys were stepping in the ring with him, and they're swinging him like a fist fight. So New Jack, I'm not going to blame New Jack, because he had all right to defend himself. If someone's going to swing at me, you're damn right. You give me a broken bottle, I'm going to put it to your forehead. I'm going to kill you. Either you or me, or one of them's going to happen. I'm not going to let you beat me down, you know?
Right.
And that was all those battles that I saw that he did, that these people, they actually tried to go in the ring and fight him because they were not trained. They had no idea what they were doing, and they thought what he was doing was actually real. And that was their downfall.
Right, yeah, because in the past you've told me like a different side of the story, that New Jack was in there fighting for his life against these guys.
Yes, he
swinging
was.
at him,
Absolutely, he was, because these guys were already swinging. The match with the bell would ring, and these guys would come to the corner and attack him and start swinging at him like a real fist fight. Mm-hmm. And it's like, New's like, no. You know, when New Jack told me, he goes, this guy wants me to beat him with a bullwhip full of barbed wire. Why would you do that if we can still sell it and make it look vicious with a piece of paper on the floor and say, here, beat me with this? I can make that look like you're killing me with a piece of paper. Compared to that, why would you go do that? You see what I'm saying? Right. That was his whole philosophy, is if I can get this across and get my point across by selling and by having the moves done, then there's no need for me to put that barbed wire hard into you and pull it and pull flesh off your back, or put something in your forehead and let your gash open. And, you know, there's no need for us to do that. Mm-hmm. But these guys who, again, what Ray was telling you, they had no concept of training. They were not trained to do this. They had no idea what they were stepping themselves into. And they thought what New Jack did was real. it was real. In their eyes, it was real. The man had to defend himself.
Right.
That's it. So,
Well, all right. Mac Monday, how we doing on time?
Just under 35 minutes.
Okay, so it looks like it's about time for ABP. Always be plugging. Stan, what you got?
Indie Fanatics Podcast.
Where can it be found?
Everywhere podcasts can be found.
Okay. Papa Don, what you got?
of course, AAPW, an official AAPW.
Where can that be found?
Yeah, where can we find that?
Street corner down the road. No, you can get it all on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. What else we got? That's
Twitch.
Twitch.
I think you got an OnlyFans too.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
All right. Do you guys remember the movie Speed?
Yes.
Do you know what happened if that bus went under 65 miles per hour?
It
Yes.
blow up.
It'd blow up.